My name is Luca. 20 years old, junior at Westlake University, majoring in literature with a minor in film studies. Nothing special about me really, average height, average build, average grades. The kind of guy who blends into the background of every classroom photo. I was fine with that. Being unremarkable meant flying under the radar, and I'd perfected the art of existing without drawing attention. Until Sawyer arrived. It was the first day of the spring semester, and I was half asleep in my contemporary American literature class when Professor Hayes announced we had a transfer student joining us. I barely looked up from my notebook, where I'd been absently doodling instead of taking notes on the syllabus. This is Sawyer Mitchell, joining us from UCLA. Please make him feel welcome. Something in the professor's voice, a warmth that was unusual for the typically dry Hayes, made me glance up. And then I couldn't look away. Sawyer was the kind of beautiful that doesn't seem real. Tall and lean, with broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist. Honey-gold skin that suggested endless summers at the beach. Dark hair cut short on the sides but longer on top, falling in waves across his forehead. But it was his eyes that caught me, a clear, bright blue that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. He smiled, a flash of perfect white teeth, and scanned the classroom. For a half-second, his gaze landed on me, and my heart did something complicated in my chest. Then he was moving, taking an empty seat 2 rows ahead of me, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. As I was saying, Hayes continued, your first paper will be a partner project. I tuned out again, my eyes fixed on the back of Sawyer's head. There was a small tattoo just visible at his neckline, something geometric that disappeared beneath his collar. I found myself wondering how far down it went. So find someone you don't mind spending time with for the next month. Wait, what? I snapped back to attention as chairs scraped and people began moving around, the universal sound of partner selection beginning. I stayed frozen, doing what I always did, waiting until everyone else had paired up, ready to be assigned whoever was left. Except this time, as I watched in disbelief, Sawyer turned in his seat, those blue eyes scanning the room again until they landed on me. He smiled, a smaller, more private smile than the one he'd offered the class, and stood up, weaving through the desks until he was standing in front of me. Hey, he said, his voice a low tenor with the faintest hint of a southern accent. Want to be partners? My brain short-circuited. Me? He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Yeah, you. Unless you're already partnered up? No, I'm not, I managed. I'm Luca. Sawyer. He extended a hand, and I took it. His palm was warm and slightly calloused. Nice to meet you, Luca. And that was how it started, with a handshake and a partner project on F. Scott Fitzgerald. We exchanged numbers and agreed to meet at the library the following day to begin our research. That night, I spent an embarrassing amount of time looking up Sawyer Mitchell online. His Instagram was filled with photos of beaches, swimming competitions, so he was an athlete, and casual shots with friends. He'd been on the swim team at UCLA, specializing in butterfly and freestyle. There were several pictures of him on podiums, medals around his neck, that same bright smile on his face. By the time we met at the library, I'd constructed an entire narrative in my head, popular jock, probably straight, definitely out of my league as even a friend. I'd resigned myself to a purely academic relationship. But Sawyer defied my expectations from the start. So why'd you transfer? I asked as we settled at a table in the quiet section, laptops open in front of us. Needed a change, he said with a shrug. UCLA was great, but it was too. He trailed off, searching for the word. Big? Prestigious? Full of beautiful people? I supplied. He laughed. I was going to say superficial, but sure, those two. He leaned forward, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I got tired of feeling like I had to have a perfect Instagram post every time I went to the dining hall. It was such an unexpected answer that I laughed too loudly, earning a glare from the librarian. Sorry, I whispered. But you've got the whole social media thing down pretty well from what I saw. His eyebrows rose. You looked me up? Heat flooded my face. I wanted to know who I was working with. His smile turned knowing. Well, I haven't looked you up yet, so you've got me at a disadvantage. You wouldn't find much, I admitted. I'm not really a social media person. A man of mystery, he said, his eyes twinkling. I like that. Was he flirting? I couldn't tell. I'd had exactly one relationship in my life, a 3-month affair with a theater major freshman year that ended when he transferred to Juilliard. My flirtation radar was severely underdeveloped. Not much mystery, I said, focusing on my laptop screen. Just not much to share. Sawyer studied me for a moment, then thankfully changed the subject. So, Fitzgerald. Have you read much of his work? We spent the next 2 hours discussing the assignment, comparing notes on what we'd read, and outlining our approach to the paper. Throughout the conversation, I kept noticing little things about Sawyer, the way he ran his hand through his hair when thinking, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the faint scent of chlorine that clung to him beneath his cologne. Do you still swim? I asked during a lull in our literary discussion. Every day, he said, his face lighting up. It's like breathing for me at this point. I'm not on the team here, wanted to focus on academics for a while, but I can't stay out of the water. Is that why you smell like a pool? The words were out before I could stop them. Instead of being offended, he laughed and lifted the collar of his shirt to his nose. Do I? Damn, I showered twice this morning. That stuff gets into your skin after a while. It's not bad, I said quickly. Just noticeable. I go to the university pool most mornings, he said. And Sunday evenings when it's usually empty. It's my meditation time, I guess. I've never been, I admitted. To our pool, I mean. I can swim, but I'm not good at it. This was a lie. I could doggy paddle at best and had a mild fear of deep water, but something made me want to impress him. You should come sometime, he said, and it sounded like a genuine invitation. Sunday evenings are perfect for casual swimmers. No team practice, no crowds. Maybe I will, I said, even as my brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. We wrapped up our library session with plans to meet again in a few days. As we parted ways outside, Sawyer gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder. See you in class, partner. The touch, casual as it was, stayed with me all the way back to my dorm. Over the next 2 weeks, Sawyer and I fell into a rhythm of meeting for our project work, sitting together in class, and occasionally grabbing coffee afterward. He was easy to talk to, interested in my opinions, and genuinely funny. I learned that he was from Georgia originally, had moved to California for swimming, and was majoring in environmental science with hopes of working in marine conservation. So you're beautiful, athletic, and you want to save the oceans, I said during one of our coffee sessions. Are you even real? He looked startled, then pleased. You think I'm beautiful? I froze, realizing what I'd said. Objectively speaking, I mumbled into my latte. Well, objectively speaking, he echoed, his voice warm with amusement. You're not so bad yourself, Luca. Again, that hint of flirtation that I couldn't quite trust. Was he just being friendly? Was this how confident, attractive people talked to everyone? I couldn't tell, and I was too afraid to ask directly. Instead, I decided to take him up on his swimming invitation. If nothing else, it would give me a chance to see him in his element, and yes, shirtless. I'm only human. The fact that it required me to face one of my biggest fears seemed like a small price to pay. That Sunday evening, I stood outside the university's aquatic center, clutching a newly purchased pair of swim trunks and a towel, trying to work up the courage to go inside. I'd watched enough YouTube tutorials on basic swimming to feel somewhat prepared, but my heart was racing. The facility was nearly empty, just as Sawyer had promised. I changed quickly in the locker room, avoiding looking at my reflection in the full-length mirrors. Next to Sawyer, I'd look like a pale, scrawny kid. But it was too late to back out now. The pool area was vast and echoing, the water glowing an otherworldly blue under the ceiling lights. And there was Sawyer, cutting through the water with powerful strokes, his body a sleek line of movement. I stood transfixed at the edge, watching him complete a lap, flip underwater with graceful precision, and push off for another. He was halfway back when he spotted me. He changed direction mid-stroke, swimming to the side where I stood. "You came," he said, pushing his hair back from his face, water streaming down his chest. The tattoo I'd glimpsed extended from his neck across his right shoulder and partway down his arm, an intricate pattern of geometric shapes that somehow reminded me of waves. "I said I would," I replied, suddenly very conscious of my bare chest and the fact that I was about to humiliate myself. "Come on in," he said, floating effortlessly. "Water's perfect." I sat at the edge, dangling my feet in. The water was warmer than I expected, but my anxiety made me shiver anyway. "You okay?" Sawyer asked, noticing my hesitation. "Fine," I lied. It's been a while. We can stay in the shallow end," he offered, moving toward the steps at the corner of the pool. "Come on." Taking a deep breath, I slid into the water, immediately finding the bottom with my feet. 4 feet deep, manageable. I waded toward Sawyer, trying to look more confident than I felt. "So, what's your stroke?" he asked. "Mostly just staying afloat," I admitted, deciding honesty was better than drowning from pride. His eyes widened. "Wait, you really don't swim?" "Not well," I said. "But I want to learn. I thought maybe you could give me some pointers?" His face broke into that radiant smile. "I'd love to. Let's start with the basics." For the next hour, Sawyer patiently guided me through floating, basic arm movements, and proper breathing techniques. He was a good teacher, encouraging without being condescending, hands-on without making me uncomfortable. Well, uncomfortable in a bad way. Every time his hands positioned my arms or supported my back as I practiced floating, my skin tingled with awareness. "You're a natural," he said as I managed to swim from one side of the shallow end to the other without touching the bottom. "Now you're just being nice," I said, but I was glowing from the praise. "No, really. Most adults who don't swim well have mental blocks about it. You're actually trying, not fighting the water." Emboldened by his encouragement, and wanting to impress him further, I suggested, "Should we try the deeper end?" He looked doubtful. "Let's not push it on day one. Just to the 5-foot section," I insisted. "I can always stand on my tiptoes if I need to." He hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but stay close to the edge, and I'll be right beside you." We moved gradually into deeper water, with Sawyer demonstrating techniques and me following along. I was so focused on not embarrassing myself that I didn't notice how far we'd gone until I reached down and couldn't touch the bottom. Panic hit me instantly. My arms flailed, my rhythm broke, and water flooded my nose and mouth as I sank. In my desperation, I reached for anything, and found Sawyer. But instead of helping me up, my panicked grabbing pushed him away and me further down. Water closed over my head. The chlorine burned my eyes and throat. My lungs screamed for air. The surface seemed impossibly far away, the lights above distorted and wavering. Then strong arms were around me, pulling me upward. We broke the surface, and I gasped for air, coughing and sputtering. Sawyer's voice was in my ear, calm but urgent. "I've got you. You're okay. Just breathe." He towed me to the side, where I clung to the edge, still coughing. My eyes were streaming, my nose burning, shame and fear coursing through me in equal measure. "I'm sorry," I gasped when I could speak. I thought I could." "Hey, it's okay," Sawyer said, his hand rubbing circles on my back. "You're safe. That's what matters." Once I'd caught my breath, he helped me out of the pool and sat beside me on the edge, both of us dripping. He handed me my towel, concern etched on his face. "Why didn't you tell me you couldn't swim at all?" he asked, but there was no accusation in his voice. I couldn't meet his eyes. "Because I wanted an excuse to spend time with you," I admitted, too rattled for anything but the truth. "And I thought you'd think I was pathetic." "Luca," he said, his voice gentle. "Look at me." I reluctantly raised my eyes to his. "I already spend time with you because I want to," he said. "You didn't need to risk drowning to get my attention." "I have it?" The question came out small and uncertain. In answer, Sawyer reached out and brushed a wet strand of hair from my forehead, his hand lingering on the side of my face. "You've had it since that first day in Hayes' class when you were doodling instead of listening and trying so hard to look like you didn't care about anything." My heart pounded, and this time it had nothing to do with nearly drowning. "I thought you didn't notice me until we became partners." "I asked to be your partner," he said. "Hayes was letting us choose, remember?" "But why?" "You don't know me." "I wanted to," he said simply. "There was something about you, something quiet but intense. Like still waters." I couldn't help but laugh. "Bad metaphor after what just happened." He grinned. "Okay, maybe not waters. Like a calm day that might have a storm brewing underneath." "That's me," I said. "A storm brewing under a lot of awkwardness and poor life choices." "I like your awkwardness," he said, his voice dropping lower. "And this was only one poor life choice. We all get a few." We were sitting close, our shoulders touching, water pooling beneath us on the tile. In the empty natatorium, with the lights reflecting off the water, it felt like we were in our own private world. "Can I confess something else?" I asked. "After the swimming lie, it can't be that bad." I took a deep breath. "I've been trying to figure out if you've been flirting with me or if that's just how you talk to everyone." His eyebrows rose, then he threw his head back and laughed. "Luca, I've been flirting with you so hard I was starting to worry I was being too obvious." "Oh," I said, relief and excitement flooding through me. "Good." "Good?" he echoed, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "Yeah, good. Because I've been wanting to do this since the library." Before I could overthink it, I leaned in and kissed him. His lips were soft but cold from the pool water, and he tasted faintly of chlorine. For a terrifying second, he didn't respond, and I started to pull back, apologies already forming. Then his hand was on the back of my neck, drawing me closer, and he was kissing me back with an intensity that made my head spin. His other hand found my waist, water-chilled fingers against my skin sending shivers through me that had nothing to do with being cold. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Sawyer's eyes were darker now, his pupils dilated. "Been wanting to do that since Hayes' class," he murmured. "You win," I said, slightly dazed. You've wanted to kiss me longer. He laughed again, the sound echoing around the empty pool area. It's not a competition. Good, because I nearly drowned trying to impress you. I don't need another challenge. His expression softened, and he tucked a finger under my chin. No more death-defying stunts, okay? Just be you. That's who I'm interested in. We kissed again, slower this time, exploring. His hand slid from my waist to the small of my back, pulling me closer until I was practically in his lap, our wet skin sticking slightly where it touched. A distant door opening broke the spell. We pulled apart as the night security guard's footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. We should probably go, Sawyer whispered. Before we get kicked out for PDA and nearly drowning. We gathered our things and headed to the locker room, stealing glances and small touches as we changed back into dry clothes. Outside the aquatic center, the night air was cool against my still damp hair. Sawyer took my hand as we walked across the darkened campus. My roommate's gone for the weekend, he said casually. We could go back to my place, maybe order food? Watch a movie. Netflix and chill already? I teased, squeezing his hand. We haven't even had a proper date. Consider the pool incident our first date. It had drama, a rescue, a confession, and a kiss. That's better than dinner and a movie. When you put it that way, I said, bumping my shoulder against his. Lead the way. Sawyer's dorm was in one of the newer buildings, a single room with a private bathroom, the privilege of being a transfer student who'd applied late and gotten lucky with housing assignments. It was neater than I expected, with swimming trophies arranged on a shelf, books stacked on his desk, and a large poster of the ocean covering one wall. Make yourself comfortable, he said, gesturing to the bed, which also served as the only seating option besides his desk chair. What kind of food do you like? We decided on pizza, and while waiting for delivery, Sawyer connected his laptop to a small projector, turning the blank wall opposite his bed into a makeshift movie screen. We settled side by side against his headboard, shoulders touching, browsing through streaming options. So, he said as we scrolled, now that you've nearly drowned for my attention, what else should I know about Luca? Wait, I don't even know your last name. Romano, I supplied. Italian dad, hence the name. And there's not much else to know. Literature major, film minor, mediocre student, terrible swimmer. I doubt the mediocre student part, he said. You've had insights about Fitzgerald that never even occurred to me. That's just because I've read The Great Gatsby 4 times. It was my comfort book in high school. Comfort book? He looked intrigued. Most people's comfort books are happier. I shrugged. I liked that it was about longing for something you couldn't have. It felt relatable at the time. His expression turned thoughtful. And now? Still relatable? I'm still figuring that out, I said, suddenly shy despite our earlier boldness. What about you? What should I know about Sawyer Mitchell beyond the swimming trophies and perfect hair? He laughed. My hair is far from perfect. You should see it in the morning. The casual reference to mornings together made my stomach flip pleasantly. Let's see. I have an older sister who's a marine biologist. She's the reason I got into environmental science. I can play the guitar but not well. I'm allergic to cats but love them anyway. And, he hesitated, then continued, I came out as bi in high school, which didn't go over great in my small Georgia town, which is partly why swimming became so important. It was the one place I felt free. The confession hung between us, important and vulnerable. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. I came out as gay my senior year. My parents were okay with it, but school was rough for a while. Is that why Gatsby resonated? The longing? Partly, I admitted. There was a guy, star basketball player, obviously straight. Classic hopeless crush. Sawyer's hand found mine on the bedspread, our fingers intertwining. Not so hopeless now, huh? Definitely an upgrade, I said, smiling at him. Star swimmer beats basketball player any day. The pizza arrived, temporarily interrupting the moment. We ate while watching a sci-fi movie neither of us paid much attention to, more focused on the casual touches and glances we exchanged. When the pizza was gone and the movie half forgotten, Sawyer set the laptop aside and turned to face me. Can I ask you something? His expression was serious. Anything, I said, hoping it wasn't about my embarrassing pool performance. Why me? You could have just said you wanted to hang out. Why the elaborate swimming ruse? I considered deflecting with humor but decided honesty was better. Because you're you, I said simply. Gorgeous, confident, accomplished. I didn't think you'd be interested in just hanging out with someone like me. He frowned. Someone like you? You know, I gestured vaguely at myself. Average. Unremarkable. Is that really how you see yourself? The surprise in his voice seemed genuine. It's how most people see me, I said. I've perfected the art of blending in. Sawyer shook his head, his expression incredulous. Luca, there is nothing average about you. From that first day, you stood out to me. The way you see the world, the way you analyze literature, the quiet confidence you don't even realize you have. Confidence? I laughed. I nearly drowned trying to impress you. Okay, maybe not in swimming, he conceded with a smile. But in class, when you speak, everyone listens. You don't say much, but when you do, it matters. I felt my face warming at his words. No one had ever described me that way before. I think you're seeing what you want to see. Or maybe I'm seeing what you don't let yourself see, he countered, reaching out to trace the line of my jaw with his fingertips. Either way, I like my view. And then he was kissing me again, and I was kissing him back, and the movie played unwatched as we lost ourselves in each other. His hands found their way under my shirt, warm against my skin, and mine explored the muscles of his back, the definition earned from years of swimming. We didn't go further than kissing that night, both silently agreeing to take things slow. Eventually, the movie ended, the room fell into darkness except for the glow of his laptop, and we lay facing each other, talking in whispers even though there was no one to disturb. Stay, Sawyer said when I mentioned it was getting late. Just to sleep, he added quickly. I want to wake up next to you. How could I refuse? I borrowed a t-shirt and shorts to sleep in, both too big but smelling like him, which made up for the poor fit. We curled together in his narrow dorm bed, my back to his chest, his arm draped over my waist, his breath warm on my neck. Worth almost drowning for? He murmured sleepily. Definitely, I whispered back. But let's find less dangerous ways to spend time together in the future. Deal, he said, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. Though I make no promises about keeping you out of deep water. I fell asleep smiling, wrapped in the arms of the boy who not only saved me from drowning, but had seen something in me worth noticing in the first place. Over the following weeks, Sawyer and I became inseparable. We finished our Fitzgerald project, earning an A, spent evenings in his room watching movies and talking until dawn, and even braved the pool again, though this time staying firmly in the shallow end while he patiently taught me basic swimming skills. You're getting better, he encouraged as I managed to float on my back without his support for the first time. I have a good teacher, I replied, focusing on keeping my body relaxed on the water's surface. An excellent motivation, he added with a wink. Every new skill mastered earns a reward. Is that so? I let my feet find the bottom of the pool and stood up. And what's my reward for conquering back floating? In answer, he pulled me close, water lapping around our waists, and kissed me thoroughly, heedless of the few other students at the far end of the pool. Worth the effort, I said when we broke apart. Our relationship wasn't without its challenges. Sawyer's swimming schedule meant early mornings when I preferred late nights. My tendency toward introversion sometimes clashed with his more outgoing nature. And there was the looming question of the future. He was considering graduate programs for marine biology, most of them on the coast, while my post-graduation plans were still nebulous at best. But those concerns felt distant and manageable in the face of what we were building together. Every day brought new discoveries: his passion for environmental documentaries, my secret talent for baking, his ticklishness behind his knees, my inability to function without morning coffee. A month after our first kiss, Sawyer convinced me to attend a small swimming competition he'd entered, not affiliated with the university but a local club meet where he was competing in the butterfly and freestyle events. "You don't have to come," he said, trying to sound casual but not quite succeeding. "It's not a big deal." "Of course I'll come," I said, recognizing the importance behind his nonchalance. "I want to see what all those trophies are about." The natatorium was crowded and humid, the air thick with the smell of chlorine and the sound of cheering. I found a seat in the bleachers, program in hand, scanning for Sawyer's name. He was in the third heat of the 100-meter butterfly, his specialty. When he emerged from the locker room with the other swimmers, I felt a surge of pride. He looked like he belonged there, confident and focused, his body built for the water. He scanned the crowd as he approached his starting block, and when he spotted me, his face lit up with a smile that made my heart race. I watched, breathless, as he dove into the water at the signal and transformed into something otherworldly. His butterfly stroke was powerful and graceful, his body undulating like the waves he loved so much. He touched the wall first in his heat, qualifying for the final later that day. Between events, he found me in the stands, still dripping and flushed with exertion. "You came," he said, as if he couldn't quite believe it. "I said I would," I replied, echoing his words from our first pool encounter. "You were amazing out there." "Wait till the final," he said with a confident grin. "That was just the warm-up." He was right. In the final, he was even more impressive, finishing second overall and qualifying for a regional meet. As I waited for him outside the locker room after the competition, I realized how much my life had changed in such a short time. 2 months ago, I would never have spent a Saturday in a crowded natatorium, holding a small congratulatory gift, a waterproof case for the battered paperback of The Great Gatsby he kept by his bed. When he emerged, hair still damp and silver medal around his neck, his face lit up at the sight of me. "You stayed for the whole thing," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Of course I did," I said, breathing in the now familiar scent of chlorine and his soap. "I'm proud of you." He pulled back, his expression soft. "That means a lot. No one's come to watch me swim since I left home." I handed him the small wrapped package. "Just a little something to say congratulations." He unwrapped it on the spot, his face breaking into a delighted smile when he saw what it was. "This is perfect," he said, turning the waterproof case over in his hands. "How did you know I've ruined 3 copies with water damage?" "Because you read in the bathtub like a heathen," I said, laughing. "And leave books by the pool." "I love it," he said, then paused, his expression changing to something more serious. "And I love you." The words hung between us, unexpected but not unwelcome. We'd been dating for only a short time, but it felt right, as if we'd known each other much longer. "I love you too," I said, the words coming easily. Even though you smell like a pool most of the time. He laughed, relief and joy mingling in his expression, and kissed me right there in the crowded hallway of the natatorium. Take me home? He murmured against my lips. Always, I replied. Back at his dorm, still riding the high of his victory and our shared declaration, we made love for the first time, slow and tender, discovering each other in new ways, learning the language of each other's bodies. Afterward, lying tangled together in his narrow bed, I traced the lines of his tattoo with my fingertips. What does it mean? I asked, following the geometric pattern from his shoulder down his arm. It's a stylized wave pattern, he said, watching my fingers move across his skin. I got it after my first national competition. It reminds me that even when life feels turbulent, there's a pattern to the chaos if you look closely enough. Like us, I said thoughtfully. Meeting because of a random class assignment. Nothing random about it, he countered, pulling me closer. I saw you that first day and made sure I sat near enough to be a logical partner choice. Pure strategy. You planned it? I was surprised by this revelation. Not exactly planned, he admitted. But I definitely engineered the opportunity. Worth it, though. Even with the near-drowning incident? He smiled, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Especially with the near-drowning incident. How else would I get to play the hero? My hero, I said, only half joking. Because he was, in a way, not just for pulling me from the water that day, but for seeing me when I'd spent so long blending into the background. For making me feel remarkable. As we drifted toward sleep, Sawyer's medal hanging from his desk lamp and casting small reflections around the room, I thought about ripple effects, how one small change can spread outward in ever-widening circles. Sawyer transferring to our university. Me noticing him in class. Him choosing me as a partner. Me following him to the pool. Each decision leading to the next, creating the pattern that brought us here, together. What are you thinking about? He murmured, his voice thick with approaching sleep. Ripples, I said. How small choices lead to big changes. He agreed. Like me choosing to transfer here. Best ripple effect ever. I couldn't argue with that. As I closed my eyes, safe in his arms, I was grateful for every choice, every ripple, even the one that had me flailing in deep water, that had led to this moment. My name is Luca. 20 years old, junior at Westlake University, boyfriend of the most beautiful swimmer on campus. Nothing average about my life anymore, not since Sawyer arrived and taught me that sometimes, you have to go into deep water to find what you're looking for. Sometimes you have to risk drowning to learn how to really live.